wading boat through a remote part of the Indonesian archipelago to the last surviving stronghold of the world's biggest lizard.
Check this place out. Unbelievable. This is the home of the dragon.
Steve Irwin, often known as the Crocodile Hunter, was well known for his link to animal entertainment and Australia. His family and friends across the globe adored him. Many people were shocked and saddened by his abrupt death. Wild creatures are often seen as both beautiful and dangerous, and it is typically preferable to not interact with them.
In the northeastern corner of Australia, where the top end meets the sea, lurks a relic from the days of the dinosaurs.
Some people may not be terrified of animals, but they have a profound respect for nature's extraordinary creatures that cannot be shaken. Steve Irwin had a great love for animals, which he carried with him even after his death. He was a wildlife specialist and conservation champion, a zookeeper, and an environmentalist, not just a TV personality who fed crocodiles in front of cameras. His father was a reptile and amphibian specialist, and his mother was a wildlife rehabilitator. Thus, he grew up in a household of wildlife experts. He was raised in the presence of crocodiles and other reptiles and taught to manage them at an early age. His youth was unusual in that he was given a 12-foot scrub python at the age of 6, and by the age of 9, he was battling crocodiles under the supervision of his father. Steve got more active with the park as he grew older, and he also volunteered for a crocodile control program in Queensland, collecting over 100 potential deadly crocodiles.
Dangerous animals like crocodiles and snakes requires tremendous concentration. You've got to be totally on the ball. Now, when a camera crew comes into the equation, you've got to worry about them as well. And that's when my concentration can be broken, even for a split second. Bang!
He bought the park in 1991 and renamed it Australia Zoo in 1998, giving it the prominence it deserved. Steve, a 44-year-old TV personality and wildlife specialist with 10 years of experience with the hit series The Crocodile Hunter, received his nickname on September 4th, 2006. He was constantly on the go and never wanted to stop since he was so enthusiastic about his profession, both on and off camera. He was also profoundly in love with his wife Terry and his 2 children, Bindi and Robert. Nothing in his life appeared to be able to alter his views about his passion for his career, family, and animals. On September 4th, Steve and his team were shooting a documentary called Ocean's Deadliest at Bat Reef, part of the Great Barrier Reef near Port Douglas, Australia. Although Steve was feeling good and motivated, not everyone on the team felt the same way.
What a fantastic species. Huge big shark. Look at the spots and those pretty beady little black eyes.
John Stanton, his closest friend and producer of The Crocodile Hunter, suspected something was wrong. In reality, 3 weeks before shooting, John phoned the Discovery Channel and asked them to abandon the project, but they had already committed a substantial amount of money. Despite this, John had medical exams and prepared a will because he couldn't get rid of the anxiety that anything might happen to him. Steve met with the team a few days before production began, but John's concern persisted. Steve thanked his staff for being there and assisting him before the production of Ocean's Deadliest started. To some, it may have seemed to be a typical thank you speech, but to John Stanton, a close friend of Steve's, it felt odd and spooky, almost like a last farewell. Despite this, they had to keep recording. Steve and John awoke early on Monday, eager to work, but also wanting to spend some time together pondering before they started. They were drinking tea on the deck of Steve's 75-foot research vessel, fittingly dubbed Rock 1, while gazing out over the ocean. Steve was cheerful and upbeat, remarking about how lovely life was to him and how eager he was for another adventure. However, as the day continued, the team concluded that conditions were too overcast to shoot Ocean's Deadliest. The team chose to postpone filming for Ocean's Deadliest for a few hours or maybe a day since the seas were too murky. Steve Irwin, on the other hand, viewed the delay as a chance to record material for his daughter Bindi's planned wildlife program on the Discovery Kids channel, Bindi the Jungle Girl, which she would host. The channel hoped she'd be able to fill her father's shoes and teach youngsters all across the globe about nature and its inhabitants. Steve felt this was a fantastic idea since his daughter was a little replica of himself. He instructed his photographer, Justin Lyons, to set up his equipment and prepare for a rapid dive. Steve and his cameraman Justin Lyons were experienced snorkelers who had intended to film sequences with a tiger shark but were unable to locate one. They chose to film with a stingray instead. They separated an inflatable boat from the main boat and plunged in. Because the water was shallow and the divers were experienced, nothing could have warned them of what was going to happen. Stingrays, while having stingers, are not traditionally considered deadly species since they are not aggressive until threatened. They normally swim away or hide in the sand, and they only attack people when provoked, such as when they are accidentally stomped on. No such safeguards were taken by Steve and his videographer, Justin Lyons. They came upon a gorgeous short-tailed stingray with a rear spread of around 6.5 feet and shot it for the TV program. Steve wasn't worried since he was used to dealing with crocodiles on a regular basis, but something strange and dreadful occurred. After becoming irritated, the stingray pushed its razor-sharp tail into Steve Irwin's chest. Although Justin, the videographer, was stunned and wanted to stop recording, Steve had a rule that they had to continue filming regardless of what occurred. The video kept rolling while the stingray extended its tail frantically, and by the time it swam away, Steve was standing in a big pool of blood. The tale that surfaced in the days after was that Steve had pulled the barb out of his chest, but his cameraman, Justin Lyons, who was there at the time, indicated that this was not the case. The sharp barb had easily pierced Steve's chest, and he had realized he was in big danger. He cried as he rose from the chest-deep water. "It perforated my lung," but the truth was much worse. Justin saw a 2-inch wide wound above Steve's heart, with blood and fluid oozing from it. He and the rest of the crew hurriedly loaded Steve into the inflatable boat and returned to the main boat. Justin urgently sought to assist his buddy, instructing other crew members to apply pressure on the cut and imploring Steve to live for the sake of his children. However, Steve calmly glanced at his companion and remarked, "I'm dying," before passing out. The staff tried CPR, but it was too late. Paramedics came and discovered he had died. Even if they had been able to bring him to a hospital, the enormous damage to his heart would have killed him. The accident footage has never been made public and is unlikely to be published in the future. Steve Irwin died in a couple of seconds while doing what he loved most, engaging with animals. Terry, his wife, and their children, Bindi and Robert, were on a holiday in Tasmania when they learned of the tragedy. Terry was notified of the awful news by the zoo management and had to get the courage to tell her children when they returned to Australia Zoo. They were astonished to find the media waiting for them, but they also got flowers from Steve's family. Terry never remarried, because Steve was the love of her life and no one could ever equal their bond. Instead, she and her children took over Australia Zoo, carrying on Steve's legacy. Bindi and Robert are both zookeepers and environmentalists who want to make their father proud every day. Steve Irwin will be remembered not just as a humorous, goofy showman, but also as a conservationist and animal lover who employed innovative tactics to promote awareness and educate the public about the value of nature.